Hi guys, today we are going to be talking about the talus bone. But before we continue, don't forget to like and share my videos and as well subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't. So let's get right into it. A quick overview of the bones of the foot. We have 7 tarsal bones, 5 metatarsal bones and 14 phalanges in comparison with the bones of the hand where we have 8 carpal bones, 5 metacarpal bones, and 14 phalanges. But in the foot, we have 7 tarsal bones, 5 metatarsal bone, and 14 phalanges. So the only difference is in the number of the carpal bones and the tarsal bones. So this is a talus. And for the bones of the foot, they are made up of 7 bones that are arranged in 2 rows. We have the proximal row, which is closer to the body, and we have the distal row, which is further away from the body. So the proximal row is made up of 2 bones. We have the talus bone and we have the calcaneus bone. The talus bone is just above the calcaneus bone. So since this is the talus bone, the calcaneus bone is just going to be beneath it this way. Assuming this is my calcaneus bone, just beneath it this way. Then that is for the proximal row. And for the distal row, we have 4 bones. So we have the medial 3 cuneiform and the last cuboid. So we have medial cuneiform, intermediate cuneiform, lateral cuneiform, and the cuboid bone. So those are the bones of the distal row. Then just between the talus and the 3 cuneiform bones, we have the 7 tarsal bone, which is the navicular bone, and that is just around in between this space, just like this. Those are the tarsal bones of the foot. This talus is the second largest tarsal bone, the first being the calcaneus, and this is the second largest tarsal bone, and it lies between the tibia. The tibia is just that long bone of the leg, one of the bones of the leg, the second one being fibula. So it lies between the tibia bone and the calcaneus bone below. So we already said it's articulating with the calcaneus bone in the proximal row, right? And this is that it has 3 parts: the head, the neck, this is the neck, and the body. So again, the head, the neck, and the body. So for the side determination of the talus, to determine that it is the right or the left, the head is always directed forward. So this is always my anterior, and this part that is behind the bone is my posterior. So the head is directed forward, then the trochlear surface, this trochlear articular surface, the part that articulates with the tibia, is directed upwards, as you can see. So head is directed forward or anteriorly. The trochlear surface is directed upwards. Laterally, we have a large triangular facet this way. This triangular facet is supposed to be directed laterally. Then medially, we have a comma-shaped facet that is meant to be directed medially. So if this is my anterior and this is my posterior, then away from the body, this is my lateral, then this is my medial, since this is my midline. So this is my medial. So I can safely say that, okay, the triangular facet is directed laterally, the comma facet is directed medially, the head is directed forward or anterior, and the trochlear surface is directed upward. So I can safely say that this is the talus for my left side. So this is the left talus, given all the things I have said. Now, for the features of the talus bone, we can recall that we said it has the head, this rounded surface, the neck, and the body. So the head is directed forward and a little bit downwards. So we can see it's directed forward and a bit is pointing downwards in a way. So forward and downward and slightly downward and a little bit medially. So by the time we come like this, we can see it's directed towards this side. It is more to this side than to this lateral side. So it is directed forward, downwards, and medially. The anterior surface here is oval. Can see this oval shape, and it is convex, so it is protruding outwards, and this anterior surface articulates with the posterior surface of the navicular bone. Remember we said the navicular bone is between the talus and the 3 cuneiform bone, so it articulates with the navicular bone, the posterior surface of the navicular bone, Now, the inferior surface is marked by three areas separated by indistinct ridges. On the inferior surface of the head, there are three facets that are not well demarcated. So these facets are the posterior facet. Remember, this is our medial and this is our lateral. So posterior facet, the anterior, lateral facet, and the medial facet. Like I said, they are not well demarcated. So now we have again posterior facet, anterolateral facet, and medial facet. So the posterior facet, which is the largest, articulate with the middle facet on the sustentacular tali of the calcaneus bone. The anterolateral facet articulates with the anterior facet of the calcaneum, and the medial facet gives attachment for the spring ligament. So I'll come again. The posterior facet articulates with the middle facet on the sustentaculum tali of the calcaneum. The anterolateral facet, which is this one, articulates with the anterior facet on the calcaneum, and the medial facet gives attachment for the spring ligament. So that is everything about the head and the articular surfaces of the head. The neck of the talus bone is a constricted part of the bone. So this part that is constricted forms the neck of the talus bone. And the neck body angle, this angle between the neck and the body just around here, is around 130 to 140 degrees in infant and 150 in adult. So if I were to measure this angle, it makes 130 to 140 degree in infant and 150 degree in adult. On the plantar surface, mind you, the plantar surface is the part that is touching the ground, and the dorsal surface is the part that has the skin, that is the upper part. So on the plantar surface, we have a groove towards the medial side, and this is a groove, this depression, yes, called the sulcus tali. So this is the sulcus tali, and this groove lies in close or in opposite contact. This is the calcaneus bone with the sulcus calcanei. So this is our sulcus calcanei. This place that is painted, can we see it? This place that is painted. This is the sulcus calcanei on the calcaneus bone. So this groove, they lie together or in opposite. Just take note, this is the sulcus tali, sulcus calcanei. They articulate together this way. So can we see, yes. So can we see sulcus tali and sulcus calcanei? You can see it. So together they form a space. This space, you can see the space, right? So they form this space known as the sinus tarsi. So this space that is formed by the sulcus tali of the talus bone and the sulcus calcanei of the calcaneus bone form a space known as the sinus tarsi. So we can see through the space like that. So this is the opposite end of that space. Can you see my hand in there? So that space that is formed between the two grooves joined together is known as sinus tarsi. And the people that squat, the people that used to squat, you know, when you squat, this is the way the tibia is. So when you squat, you dorsiflex it so much, you are going to dorsiflex the tibia against the talus bone so much because you are squatting so much. So around this area is the squatters facet. So those are squatting facet, those people that squat, there's a facet here that articulates with another facet, also a squatting facet on the tibial bone. So I'm going to show us that when we are discussing tibia, the squatting facet on the tibial bone. So that's that, and that's for the neck of the talus bone. So we've talked about the head, the neck, and now we are going to talk about the body of the talus bone. The body is made up of 5 surfaces. We have the superior surface, we have the inferior surface, we have the medial surface, and we have the lateral surface. Mind you, the superior surface is also called the trochlear surface, and it articulates with the inferior surface of the lower end of the tibia to form the ankle joint. So this superior surface of the talus bone articulate with the inferior surface on the lower end of the tibia to form the ankle joint. Now the inferior surface on the other hand is oval in shape and it is concave inward. So it is concave and it is directed inward. And this surface articulates with the posterior facet of the calcaneus to form the subtalar joint. So if this is the posterior surface of the calcaneal bone, it articulates with it in this manner. So you can see how it fits perfectly into it. So this is a subtalar joint. Here is a subtalar joint. Then the medial surface has two parts, the upper articular part that articulates with the medial malleoli of the tibia and the lower non-articular part. The lateral surface on the other hand is made up of a triangular facet, like we said in the beginning, that articulates with the lateral malleoli of the fibula, and the apex of the lateral surface forms the lateral tubercle. So here is the lateral tubercle. And the posterior process is small and it is marked by an oblique groove. So here, not really defined, just a little depression in this side. Can we see that? So an oblique groove that allows for the passage of flexor hallucis longus, and this groove separates the lateral tubercle from the medial tubercle. So this groove, as you can see, is separating the lateral tubercle, this one, from the medial tubercle, this one. And sometimes this lateral tubercle can be separated from the rest of the posterior surface, and in this case it is called os trigonium. So if this lateral tubercle is not together with the posterior process, it is called os trigonium, and it is not common. It just happens occasionally. So I'll come again with the surfaces. Superior surface, also called trochlear surface, articulates with the inferior surface of the lower part of the tibia. We have the inferior surface that articulates with the posterior surface or facet on the calcaneus bone to form the subtalar joint. This one forms the ankle joint. We have the medial surface, the upper part which is articular, you can see, and this articulate with the medial malleoli of the tibia, and the lower part which is non-articular. We have the lateral surface which has a triangular facet, a large triangular facet, and this large triangular facet articulates with the lateral malleoli of the fibula. The apex of the lateral surface forms the lateral tubercle. Then we have the posterior process that is marked by an oblique groove for the passage of flexor hallucis longus, and this groove separates the lateral tubercle from the medial tubercle. And if this lateral tubercle is separated, which happens occasionally, in that case it is called os trigonium. So for the attachment on the talus bone, you can see I've already made some markings on this bone just to let us know like some certain attachments. But one peculiar thing about this bone is that it is devoid of muscular attachment. It does not have any muscle attached to it. That's so you can come out in simple chase that okay, after identifying the bone, the big question could be true or false. Does this bone have any muscular attachment? Do you get? Or they can as well ask, oh, the area painted gives attachment for extensor digitorum brevis. They will just want to confuse you in a way. So it's just left to you to know that, oh, the talus bone does not have any muscular attachment. So in that case, the answer would be false. That's for the extensor digitorum brevis question. So it is false. It does not give attachment for that muscle. And the answer will be true for it does not have any muscular attachment. So that's that. So for the ligament attachment on this bone, this area I painted, the area that is surrounding the head, it gives attachment for two ligaments. You can see the way I painted it. So it gives attachment for the capsular ligament of the ankle joint. So the capsular ligament of the ankle joint attach here, as well as the dorsal talonavicular ligament. So capsular ligament and dorsal talonavicular ligament, they attach here. Remember, this is where the naviculum articulates with. So this gives attachment for the capsular ligament of the ankle joint, as well as the dorsal talonavicular ligament. Now, on the lateral part of the neck, especially here, this part that I've painted, this gives attachment for the anterior talofibular ligament. Mind you, the fibular bone is a lateral bone. So anterior talofibular ligament, that is, talo means talus and fibula is to the fibular bone. So you can simply put the ligament is attaching or is connecting the talus bone and the fibular bone together. So this place give attachment for the anterior talofibular ligament. That is the lateral part of the neck. Then coming to the posterior process, the upper part of the posterior process gives attachments. Mind you, we are still on the lateral side. So if this is anterior, this will be the what posterior. So the upper part of the posterior process gives attachment for the posterior talofibular ligament. Do we get that? And now for the medial side, mind you, the tibial bone is the medial bone. So the first one, that is this one, it gives attachments. That's this area. This area is the non-articular part of the medial surface, if we can recall. So the non-articular part of the medial surface, this area here, just here. So this area gives attachment for the anterior tibiotalar ligament. So tibial bone and talus bone. So it gives attachment for the anterior tibiotalar ligament. So just behind that one, on the medial tubercle of the posterior process, we have the posterior tibiotalar ligament attaching there. So mind you, the tibial bone is the medial bone, the fibular bone is the lateral bone. So all the ligaments here we attach from the talus to the tibial, and all the ligaments here we attach from the talus to the fibular bone. So that's that one. Then on the inferior surface, remember we said the inferior surface has three facets: the posterior, which is the largest, the anterior or anterolateral, and the medial facet. So this area, this medial facet, this area that is painted, it gives attachment for the spring ligament. It gives attachment for the spring ligament. And finally, remain two ligaments that were yet to mention. So we have this area here. This area that is painted gives attachment to the cervical ligament. So here it gives attachment for the cervical ligament, and the last ligament is on this sulcus tali. So the sulcus tali gives attachment for the interosseous talocalcaneal ligament. Remember our talus, this part articulate with the calcaneus, right? So it articulates with the posterior surface of the calcaneus. So this ligament is the interosseous talocalcaneal ligament. So it's between the talus bone and the calcaneus bone. So here interosseous talocalcaneal ligament. So a quick recap of all the ligaments. So we have the capsular ligament of the ankle joint here, as well as the dorsal talonavicular ligament. On the lateral part, we have the anterior talofibular ligament and posterior talofibular ligament. On the medial part, we have the anterior tibiotalar ligament and the posterior tibiotalar ligament. Then on the inferior part, we have the cervical ligament, and that is all for the attachment of the talus bone. Remember, it does not have any muscular attachment. So for the ossification center of the talus bone has only one ossification center, and this ossification center appears in the 6th month of the intrauterine life of IUL. So it appears in the sixth month of the intrauterine life. So thank you so much. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Bye.